Ever feel like you're just scratching the surface of the really big questions,
Oh, definitely.
but trying to wrap your head around something that's just always been and
Right.
always will be?
Hmm.
That's kind of the mind-bending place we're heading into today with this deep dive. We're going to explore this really fascinating concept called the theoretical I am.
Yeah, and it's interesting, humans have been grappling with this same sort of idea for, well, forever. Philosophers thinking about that ultimate first cause.
Right.
And what we're doing today is looking at that specifically through the lens of the Urantia book,
Mhm.
mostly the foreword in paper 105.
Okay.
It's really about how we, as, limited beings, even try to think about the absolute origin of everything.
Exactly. And look, when you hear ultimate origin, it can sound, well, pretty heavy.
It is.
It is a complex topic, no doubt. But getting a handle on this theoretical I am,
Yeah.
it can give you a sort of foundational framework,
Yeah.
a way to start thinking about existence,
Hmm.
about deity.
Mm.
We're going to try and approach it, step by step, even though the concept itself is way beyond our usual linear thinking.
Right. It's not really linear at all.
Think of it like a really vital reference point, maybe, an anchor for your understanding. And today we're drawing on a discussion led by Dr. Roger Paul, pulling out some key ideas to explore with you.
Okay, so let's start with this idea that the postulated I am is described as a philosophic concession.
A concession. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means we're basically admitting the limits, the walls around what our minds, our time-bound, space-fettered, finite minds can actually grasp.
Because we're stuck in time and space.
Pretty much. So trying to fully comprehend something that's eternal, no beginning, no end, or relationships that don't work like cause and effect, it's a real challenge.
Yeah, it's like our brains just want a starting point, don't they? Everything we see has a beginning.
Exactly. But this idea suggests there's a primal cause of cause that just doesn't play by those rules.
So the I am is like this baseline philosophical idea.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. A value level. But here's what's really interesting and kind of immediate.
Okay.
It's not alone. The eternal Son and the infinite Spirit are right there with it, co-eternal.
Co-eternal, so always together.
Always. The source material is really clear. There was never a time when the I am wasn't the Father of the Son and with the Son of the Spirit. It's simultaneous, eternal.
Wow. Okay, that's already bending my brain a bit.
Yeah, it does that. And to give it a bit more context, the Urantia book talks about these different levels of Trinity.
Right, I remember that finite, abstinite.
And absolutely, yeah. Think of them as just ways to sort of categorize or understand the scope of deity at different levels. They help us grapple with huge concepts like supremacy, ultimacy, and absoluteness.
Kind of like a map, even if we don't fully understand all the territory yet.
Precisely. It helps structure the thinking around this immense divine reality.
Okay, so within this big picture, I am, where do things like the universal Father fit in?
Good question. That leads us to the 7 absolutes of infinity.
The 7 absolutes.
Yeah. Think of these as the most fundamental, components or building blocks that exist within that ultimate origin, the I am.
Okay, so what are they?
Well, there's the universal Father, the original Son, the infinite Spirit.
The ones we often think of as the Trinity.
Right. Then there's the Isle of Paradise itself, the qualified absolute, the universal absolute, and the unqualified absolute.
That's quite a list.
It is. But the key thing here is that all 7 of these are understood to exist within the concept of the I am.
So the I am contains all of them.
Exactly. The source uses this analogy of a great big red triangle.
Right.
Imagine all 7 absolutes are inside that triangle. The I am is like the triangle itself, the postulated origin where they all dwell and live and have their being. It's the foundation.
Got it. So how do we, stuck in our timeline, even begin to grasp something like that? It feels so outside our experience.
Yeah, and the sources tackle that directly. They contrast our linear timeline, starting at point 0 and heading towards infinity.
Our finite lives.
Right. They contrast that with God the Father's existence, which is described as infinity to infinity, no starting point.
Whoa. So our existence is like a tiny segment on an infinite line, but the Father is the whole infinite line.
That's a good way to visualize it, yeah. And then you have these transcendental beings. They're described as eventuated.
Meaning they do have a starting point, like us.
Sort of, yes. They have an origin. But here's the twist. They could potentially exist forever. Or they could be reabsorbed back into the Father's will.
Reabsorbed. Like
Yeah.
cease to exist as separate things.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. It's another layer of complexity.
Okay. So going back to the I am itself,
Yeah.
you mentioned it's presented as sort of pre-existent.
Well, yes, but theoretically, for our finite minds, it helps to think of it linearly, existing before all else as the first source and center.
But there's a catch.
Always, almost immediately, the material hits you with a paradox. The I am is described as both thing and no thing.
Thing and no thing.
Okay. And also actual and no potential, both at the same time.
Right. That's definitely a head-scratcher. What does that even mean?
Well, the idea seems to be that all possibilities, everything that could ever exist, are super universes, the outer space levels, future realities we can't even conceive of.
All of it.
All that potential is held within the I am. It's like the ultimate cosmic reservoir of what could be.
Ah, okay. So it helps distinguish between what is real now and what could be real, potential reality.
Exactly. Like those outer space levels, they're often linked to this idea of potential reality, just waiting to be made actual.
This brings up that sequence thing again, doesn't it?
Oh.
Like, did the I am exist and then the Father brought forth the Son? Because it sounds like the Father wouldn't be a father until the Son existed.
You're hitting on a key point of potential confusion there. It sounds sequential when we explain it.
Yeah.
But the text immediately jumps in and says, basically, nope, there was never such a time.
So the linear explanation is just for us.
Yeah.
A tool.
Precisely. It's a concession to our finite understanding. In reality, the Trinity, Father, Son, Spirit has always been there within the purview, the scope of the I am.
Not a sequence, but co-eternal. Got it.
Yeah, it's a simultaneous reality that our minds just struggle with, so we break it down.
Okay. Now, where does free will fit into all this?
That's a really insightful connection the material makes. The theoretical I am can be seen as a creature philosophic extension of the infinity of will.
The infinity of will,
Yeah.
meaning God's will.
Specifically, yeah, the unfettered free will of the universal Father. Sometimes they call him the Father Infinite.
So fundamentally, it's like we all live within the will of the Father.
That's the essence of it. Our existence, our choices, our potential, it's all encompassed within that infinite will of the first source and center.
Which brings us right back to our limitations, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How much can we really understand?
Exactly. A lot of the confusion around understanding the Father Infinite just stems from, well, us being finite. We hit a wall. The material even suggests it's probable that only the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit truly know the Father as an infinity.
Wow. So for the rest of us,
For everyone else, understanding these deep concepts requires, and this is a direct quote, the exercise of faith. It's about accepting that some realities just extend beyond what our logic and reason can fully map out right now.
especially with those 7 absolutes you mentioned. Some aren't even persons, right?
Right, like the unqualified absolute. It's not personality, not even considered deity in the way we usually think of it. So figuring out how that fits within the I am, well, that definitely requires some faith. It transcends our usual categories.
So the I am itself, it's hard to pin down. The text describes it using negatives.
Yeah, it's quite poetic almost. Neither deified nor unified, neither actual nor potential, neither personal nor impersonal, neither static nor dynamic, alone.
Why? Because it includes everything.
That's the idea. No single label works
Yeah.
because it has to encompass all possibilities, all aspects.
Like the example you gave earlier. The deity absolute and the unqualified absolute. The deified and the undeified both exist within it.
Exactly. It contains the opposites, the paradoxes. It's the ultimate both-hand concept, which really challenges how we normally think and use language.
So how do they even suggest we try to conceive of this?
They talk about this hypothetical, like, pre-eternity, primordial eternity situation. Very abstract stuff.
Okay, bear with me.
In this conceptual moment, the I am is thought of as thing and no thing, cause and effect, volition and response, all at once.
Before anything was differentiated.
Right. When infinity is filled by the infinite, pure potential, pure being, undifferentiated.
But even then, the idea of will is present.
Yes, even in that incredibly abstract state, the possibility of self-will, God's volition, God's will is assumed to be there, the potential to act, to create.
Okay, this helps make a distinction maybe between the God we relate to and this ultimate source concept.
Absolutely. There's God as your spiritual father, that's personal, relatable, something you can experience. And then there's the philosophic postulate of the infinity of the first source and center the I am. That's much more abstract, much less comprehensible directly.
So when we talk about the Father, like in prayer, we're connecting with the understandable aspect of God.
Yes, God as understandable to creatures like us. The I am, on the other hand, remains our best hypothesis, our best guess, for all that we sense is unknowable about the first source. And even that hypothesis probably falls short.
It's humbling, really, thinking about the complexity.
It really is. I mean, think about the universe of universes, how vast, how intricate, how full of life and detail it is.
Unimaginable, really.
Right. And yet the first source and center, this I am, is described as being infinitely more complex than all of that combined.
Wow. So even creation itself is just a glimpse.
A partial revelation, yeah. A limited look into the infinite nature of the source.
It really puts things in perspective. Infinity feels so remote sometimes from our daily lives.
It can, absolutely. But the material offers some comfort there, too. It reminds us that our concepts of infinity actually grow.
As we grow.
As we grow, potentially eternally, unqualified infinity might seem meaningless to us now as finite being.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp.
But infinity is capable of self-limitation. It can express itself on all levels in ways we can eventually understand.
And the face it shows us.
Ultimately, the face the infinite turns towards all creation is that of the universal Father of love.
Ah, that brings it back to the personal.
It does, and it connects beautifully, actually, with something like the prayer of acceptance.
How so?
When you choose to align your will with the will of the Paradise Father, you're essentially aligning yourself with the I am, with that ultimate source of everything.
And that connects us.
It fosters that sense of interconnectedness, the brotherhood of man, all living within that greater universal will.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up a bit. The key takeaway here is that the I am is, well, foundational.
Foundational but deeply complex, yeah. It's the ultimate source, reality, potential, everything.
And for us, as finite beings, understanding it is largely an act of faith.
Faith plays a huge role, definitely. It's the theoretical bedrock, the ultimate ground of being.
And maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. As your own understanding of the universe grows, maybe through life, maybe beyond your grasp of infinity, of this I am, will likely evolve too.
That's a great thought. Reflect on your own understanding, your own relationship maybe with this first source and center. It's a personal journey.
Absolutely. And hey, if this deep dive sparked your curiosity, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because we'll definitely be exploring related ideas in future discussions, the nature of God the Father, the Trinity, in more detail.
Lots more to unpack there.
For sure. It's all part of this ongoing journey of discovery. Thanks so much for diving deep with us today.